The following may surprise you. Boo! Welcome to the Black Pill. Let's talk about fear and realism. I remember seeing Watership Down in 1979. Whether I saw Watership in 1979 is another matter, but I remember it. I remember seeing it. Yeah, it was terrifying. I would have been five. I would have been five at the time. This came out in Britain in the end of '78, in October '78. So I'd have been whatever. I'd have been five. Um, and I remember a theater full of mums with young children there to see a nice cartoon about fluffy bunny rabbits. They thought it would be Peter Rabbit or something, and that's not what happened. It's about rabbits who live in this warren at the edge of some farmland, and the farmer tolerates the rabbit warren even though rabbits are a nuisance because he can snare them, and periodically a rabbit wanders into a snare, chokes to death, and is carted off to the farmer's cook pot. That's what Watership Down is about. It's about getting smashed by cars and snatched up by birds. It's about cats. Can you run? I think not. The dog. There's a dog loose in the woods. Um, a crazy seagull and General Woundwort, who is he's the nasty. He's the baddie of this ultimate baddie of the story. General Woundwort, was raised by people and then escaped, and is got a face full of scars and stuff, and he fights the dog at the end. He's horrible. He's a monster. The pure antithesis of the cute fluffy bunny. And people who were adults when that film came out seem to remember a theater full of crying children. I only remember hiding behind my mom's seat and peeking out between between bunny murders. Um, yeah, that film would go on to be sort of a family favorite, even though it was scary. It was a family favorite, and we'd watch it whenever it was on television because it was before VCRs. Um, and some of those voice actors I didn't realize at the time would go on to be like my favorite actors in film during the period. John Hurt, the guy who gets his chest burst open on Alien, a million other productions. Ralph Richardson, who's the sorcerer in Dragon Slayer. Roy Kinnear, Denham Elliott from the Indiana Jones franchise. Just for example. Um, Maybe you're a little younger than me, and what you remember as being a kid for Jurassic Park. And the same thing happened in Jurassic Park is people thought it was going to be a movie about dinosaurs like friggin' Barney or something. It is a movie about dinosaurs, but it's a movie about dinosaurs biting lawyers in half on the toilet and velociraptors chasing little kids through a kitchen, obviously purpose built by Robert Irving. To say the theater was full of crying 5-year olds would be a bit of an exaggeration, but there for sure were a few kids quietly escorted out by their parents. Yeah, I was like 23 or something when that came out. Now, little kids in modernity stay up on Sunday nights watching The Walking Dead with their folks. My wife was a grammar school teacher here for a minute, and 8-year olds would come in talking about The Walking Dead, not obviously traumatized or perturbed by it, but it didn't seem like age appropriate material at the time. Is this good? Hell, I don't know. But something has happened. Really, two somethings have happened. The first is that we sort of became inured to violence and horror through its constant portrayal. The Walking Dead itself starts in one place and then gradually has to escalate and escalate and escalate. One could argue that they're seeing what they can get away with, but really what seems to be the case is fans get bored with the same effects, with the same level of gore, and and to shock them. Once they've been shocked by one thing, they're never again shocked by that thing, and you have to gradually ratchet up the gore level. Once you've seen a beloved character's head smeared bit by bit across the pavement with a baseball bat, there just isn't much further that you can go from there. Another thing that happened was realism. Yeah. Poltergeist scared the crap out of me when I was 9. And I didn't even know Craig T. Nelson was a fascist back then. It was the scene with the creepy tree outside the window that reaches in and snatches the little boy. It was that scene that really got me. At the time, I lived in San Joaquin Valley in California, and there was a tree like that outside my bedroom window, and there were storms like the storm in the movie, and the tree would the wind would rattle it, and the branches would scrape the window, and it scared me crapless. It was terrifying. And then there's the scene with the face ripper, the guy in the bathroom mirror, and he grabs his face and he pulls it off, and like now that's just so fake. It's so fake. Like the guy has his face in the mirror, and then in the next scene, it's a model of his face in the mirror, and that does not pass any kind of muster for today. But in 1981 or whatever it was, man, whew, wow, wow, the Terminator when he has to pluck out his own eye, and it's such an obvious head cast model now. And in what year was that? 84 maybe. That was really something. My uncles, they were old enough to see Jaws and The Exorcist in the movie house. And after Jaws, my uncles would not take a shower for a week because they were terrified of water. Like what? There's going to be a gigantic 14-foot shark in the friggin' shower? Are you insane? No, water was terrifying by association. The Exorcist, the girl spinning her head around and vomiting pea soup and whatever. They all slept in one room. They had separate beds because we were rich, and they pushed all their beds together and slept in one big terrified pile. You look at that stuff today, and it just doesn't hold up. What were we thinking? What were we thinking? Jurassic World addresses some of this directly when they're talking about Indominus Rex, and like the snooty person's like, that's not even real Latin, and that's not a real dinosaur. And the scientist is like, people have seen dinosaurs. T Rex was 25 years ago. They've seen it. Kids today are not impressed. You have to ratchet up the fear. And to do that, you have to take some liberties with the gene codes and the naming. To get a real scare, you have to get creative. Jurassic Park holds up pretty well for a 30-year-old CGI. There are a couple of scenes, where it's obvious they're running against a green screen, and then this wonderful CGI is going on behind them. It's fraying. It's fraying. It's fraying at the edges. Before Jurassic Park, we had claymation. We had, God, Ray Harryhausen was a genius at claymation, and now, he's celebrated. But the people who still celebrate Harryhausen kind of celebrate the camp of Ray Harryhausen, the campiness, the silliness of it all. But back then, like those Sinbad movies and whatever they were amazing. We'd never seen anything like it. And before Ray Harryhausen, There was The Lost World, not Jurassic Park The Lost World, not Michael Crichton The Lost World, 1925. Dinosaur movie, The Lost World. I guess there are some dinosaurs in the Amazon because the Amazon's unexplored and it could be possible. And we found ground sloth bones there in the late 1800s and whatever. Maybe there's dinosaurs, and they capture some and they bring them back, and they escape and sort of tear ass through downtown. Uh, yeah, people ran out. People ran screaming from the first screenings of Lost World. They thought there were literal dinosaurs in the street outside the movie house. And man, I used to have references for this, and now I can't find them anymore to I can't find them anymore to pin that down. Um, I'm looking back now on that clumsy claymation. You might think that only cave people would be fooled by that, would be scared by that, and like cave people couldn't buy movie tickets. But that's what happened. That was a terrifying film in 25. Almost 100 years ago. Think about that. Jaws was friggin' terrifying. Famously, the model shark didn't work right. The crew named the shark Bruce, but I think they should have named it Derek. That would have been more appropriate. So the actual monster in Jaws doesn't show up in much of the film at all. And like more than halfway through is the first time you see it, right? Is that right? And that, builds tension, yada, yada, yada. What it really does is set the scene for 50 years of shark features. And like every film thereafter has to show the monster up front. But in Jaws, when the shark finally rears its ugly head, the shark is crap on toast. Who would be fooled? Who would be fooled by this ridiculous rubberized mechanical shark? Well, people who had never seen a shark movie, or a shark documentary, or a shark would be fooled by this. We've never seen anything like it. We've never seen anything like it. When Star Wars came out, we'd never seen anything like it. I'm young enough that Star Wars was one of my formative experiences. And yet, I was also surrounded by all of the older films of the period, and nothing was like Star Wars. It was, in some ways, absurd, this weird space fantasy and all these aliens in the cantina scene, and but the technical brilliance, the modeling, the movement of things through space. It was absolutely incredible. Those laser swords, the lightsabers, absolutely incredible for 1977. We get more sophisticated. Yeah, in some ways. In some ways, we get more sophisticated as we're exposed to special effects. Babylon 5 was kind of at the edge of what they could do, and it shows it's kind of awful. And like Jerry Doyle turned out to be a fascist like Craig T. Nelson. If he'd lived a little longer, maybe he could have gotten the like Joe Rogan sweetheart Spotify deal. But we digress. Star Trek was amazing. In 1968, Star Trek was amazing. With like no budget and forced perspective, practical effects and whatever. And now it just doesn't hold up. Like some of the plotting and the character development in the scripts are so brilliant that some of the scripts are still like jaw dropping, but it's hardly watchable. Star Wars needs periodically to be cleaned up in order to stay credible. What's really changing is our exposure to ever greater special effects, and those keep making the crappy ones more and more obvious. Our ability to suspend our disbelief. Our disbelief keeps getting heavier and heavier. It's a heavier lift to suspend it. Kids aren't impressed with Star Wars now. In 77, it was a miracle. Arguably, Close Encounters was even more of a miracle, but just lacked the like laser swords to like rope us in and the like insult trading and stuff. But the young people, the kids today, are thoroughly unimpressed. They don't see what was magical or special about Star Wars. They didn't grow up in a world where Star Wars was the only good thing at the theater at the time. You know, there was nothing else like it. And now there's all kinds of stuff derivative of Star Wars. It's 2022 right now. As I record my face, it's 2022. The Matrix is 23. Matrix was made in 1999, and that is old hat. Those Wachowskis with the hang time, right? The person, Carrie Ann Moss or whoever, jumps up and does that yeah flying kick, stops in space time, and the camera seems to move around her, get her from 360 degrees. That was incredible. And now it's old hat. It's a joke. It's a punchline in Shrek. Things that look good now. Think of like, Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Magnificent. Mwah. What is that going to look like 25 years from now? I can't even begin to imagine what comes next.